The engine of my car was off, but I could still feel the hum of the road vibrating in my hands. I stared at the dashboard clock. 2:15 in the afternoon. Inside, my chest felt tight like a tension wire pulled until it snaps. I looked down at my phone. The contact was already pulled up. The Sterling Glass House. Hesitation wasn't an option. I didn't let myself dwell on the years of planning or the secret Pinterest boards or the way the light hit the conservatory glass at sunset. I pressed call. It rang twice. Sterling Glass House Events, this is Sarah speaking. Hi, Sarah, I said. My voice didn't shake. It was calm, almost bored. This is Alyssa Morgan. I'm calling about the reservation for June 15th. Oh, hello, Alyssa. Are we finalizing the catering deposit today? No, I said. I'm calling to cancel the booking, entirely. There was a pause on the other end. A long, heavy silence. Alyssa, are you sure? We're 90 days out. Per the contract, your $50,000 deposit is non-refundable. If you release the date now, you lose everything. $50,000. That was my savings. That was 3 years of overtime, missed vacations and bag lunches. It was a down payment on a house. It was freedom. I understand, I said. Please process the cancellation immediately. I want the date released back to the waitlist by the end of business today. Okay, Sarah said, sounding stunned. I'll send the termination paperwork to your email. Once you sign, the date is gone, Alyssa. We have a waitlist 3 years long. It will be snapped up in minutes. That's fine, I said. Send it. I hung up. I sat in the silence of my car and waited for the panic to set in. I braced myself for the tears. But the biological response never came. Instead, I felt something cold and sharp settle in my stomach. It wasn't regret. It was the feeling of a match being struck. I opened my email, refreshed the inbox, and saw the document. Contract termination. I signed it with my finger on the screen and hit send. Done. $50,000 gone in a heartbeat. But it wasn't a loss. It was the price of admission to a war I was finally ready to fight. Drop a comment and let me know, have you ever had to walk away from something expensive just to save your peace? I want to hear your story. My name is Alyssa Morgan, and I am 29 years old. If you looked at my family from the outside, you would see a perfectly balanced portrait. There's my mother, Christina, the director, always ensuring the lighting is perfect. There's my younger sister, Destiny, the star always center stage with a bouquet in her hands. And then there's me. I'm the stage manager. I'm the one in the black t-shirt moving the props in the dark so the show can go on. I'm a landscape architect by trade. My job is literally to build foundations that other people admire but never think about. I design the drainage systems that keep the gardens from flooding. I select the soil compositions that keep the roses alive. It's quiet work. It's necessary work. And it's exactly the role I play at home. When Destiny needed a tutor to pass algebra, I was the one staying up until midnight making flashcards. When Mom needed someone to coordinate the caterers for her anniversary party, I was the one with the clipboard. I was the fixer, the reliable one, the invisible asset. And for a long time I was okay with that. I thought being useful was the same thing as being loved. But 2 years ago, I did something completely out of character. I did something selfish. I met Mark at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday. He wasn't flashy. He didn't demand attention. He just saw me. Really saw me. We fell in love in that quiet, steady way that feels like coming home. And 6 months into our relationship, I made a decision. I opened a savings account that nobody knew about. I started putting away every extra dollar from my freelance projects. My goal wasn't a car or a vacation. It was the Sterling Glass House. If you aren't from Charleston, you might not understand. The Sterling isn't just a wedding venue, it's a botanical cathedral. It's acres of manicured gardens, ancient oaks dripping with Spanish moss, and a conservatory made entirely of antique glass that glows like a jewel at sunset. It is the ultimate status symbol in this city. The wait list is 3 years long. Getting a Saturday in June is harder than getting into Harvard. But I knew the owner. We'd worked together on a park restoration project. So 2 years ago I called in a favor. I secured June 15th. I paid the $50,000 deposit with my own money I had scraped together by skipping lunches and working weekends. It was my secret, my one beautiful, extravagant dream. I wasn't even officially engaged yet, but I knew Mark was the one, and I wanted us to start our life in the most beautiful place I knew. I kept the contract in a locked drawer in my office. Sometimes, when the family demands got too loud, I would take it out just to look at it. It was proof that I had a life of my own, proof that I was building something just for me. I never thought that piece of paper would become a weapon. But that's the thing about being the invisible architect. People assume everything you build is for them to live in. Earlier this morning, I got the text, Mom's house, now, emergency. I knew what that meant. In the lexicon of my family, an emergency usually meant Destiny had broken a nail or someone had looked at her the wrong way. I arrived to find Destiny weeping on the cream-colored sofa, clutching a tissue like it was a life raft. My mother, Christina, was pacing the living room, her heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the hardwood. "What happened?" I asked, setting my keys on the counter. "It's a disaster," Mom said, stopping in front of me. "Destiny's wedding planning is falling apart. The Montgomerys are threatening to pull the budget." I looked at Destiny. She sniffled, her eyes perfectly red-rimmed. "Matthew's parents said they'd only cover the $300,000 budget if we secured the Sterling Glass House for a June date. It's the only venue they approve of. They want to invite all their business partners. But when I called the venue this morning, they said there were no dates left." "Okay," I said slowly. "So pick another venue. Or another month." "You don't understand," Destiny wailed. "If I don't get the Sterling in June, I look incompetent. Mrs. Montgomery already thinks I'm disorganized. This was my one job. If I lose this, they'll think I'm not good enough for Matthew." Mom stepped closer. Her voice dropped to that low, serious register she used when she was negotiating a deal. But then Destiny found out something interesting. The venue manager mentioned that one of the June dates was already booked. By you. The air left the room. I felt exposed, like someone had ripped the door off my private sanctuary. "Yes," I said. "I booked it 2 years ago." "But you aren't even engaged," Mom said. "It wasn't a question. It was an accusation." "I will be," I said. "Mark and I have discussed it. We're planning for next year." "Next year," Mom laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "Alyssa, be realistic. Mark is a nice boy, but he's hardly Montgomery material. You don't need a venue like the Sterling. Destiny needs it. Her future depends on it." "I paid a $50,000 deposit," I said, my voice hardening. "It's my contract." "We know," Destiny said, sitting up. The tears had miraculously stopped. "So just transfer it to me. You can call them right now and change the name on the booking. Tell them it's a gift." "A gift," I repeated. "I already told Mrs. Montgomery you were giving it to me," Mom interrupted. "I told her my daughters are close and that you wanted to help your sister secure her dream. If you don't do this, you make me a liar, Alyssa, and you ruin your sister's wedding." I looked at them. Really looked at them. They didn't see my engagement as real because I didn't perform neediness the way Destiny did. I didn't panic. I didn't spiral. I just assessed the damage like it was a structural fracture. And because I was strong enough to handle disappointment, they assumed I was obligated to endure it. They were weaponizing my own competence against me. "You want me to give up my dream venue, lose $50,000, and delay my own life so Destiny can impress her in-laws?" I asked. "Don't be dramatic," Mom snapped. "You can book another date later. You're good at planning. You'll figure it out. Destiny is drowning here. Help your sister." They weren't asking. They were demanding. And for the first time in my life, I realized that my role in this family wasn't to be a member. It was to be a resource. The text came at 4 o'clock. "The Montgomerys are taking us to the Charleston Grill tonight to celebrate. Be there at 7. Don't embarrass me." I didn't want to go. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, to pack a bag and disappear. But I knew what would happen if I didn't show up. Mom would spin a story. She'd tell Matthew's parents I was jealous or difficult or unstable. She'd paint me as the villain before I even had a chance to speak. So I put on a dress, I secured my fixer mask like a hard hat, and I went. The restaurant was dimly lit and smelled of truffle oil and old money. The Montgomerys were exactly what you'd expect, polished, polite, and terrifyingly observant. Mrs. Montgomery wore pearls that probably cost more than my car. Matthew looked like a golden retriever in a suit, eager to please and completely oblivious to the shark tank he was swimming in. I sat at the far end of the table next to Mark. He squeezed my hand under the tablecloth, his thumb tracing calming circles on my palm. He knew everything. He knew about the venue, the demand, the blackmail. He was ready to fight, but I had asked him to wait. I needed to see how far they would go. To the happy couple Mr. Montgomery toasted, raising a crystal glass. And to a perfect June wedding at the Sterling. Mom beamed. She clinked her glass against Mrs. Montgomery's, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's going to be magical," Mom said. "Destiny has such wonderful taste. We are so lucky that everything worked out with the venue." She looked directly at me as she said it. Her eyes were hard, a silent warning. "Smile," they said. "Agree." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. They were doing it. They were publicly claiming my asset as their own, banking on my silence to seal the deal. If I spoke up now, if I said, "Actually, that's my reservation," I would humiliate everyone at the table. I would be the one causing a scene. I would prove Mom right about me being difficult. So I stayed silent. I took a sip of water and let the moment pass. But the conversation didn't stop there. "It must have been so stressful securing a date," Mrs. Montgomery said to Destiny. "I hear the wait list is years long." Destiny laughed, a light tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, it wasn't stressful at all. I actually booked it 2 years ago. I just had a feeling Matthew was the one, so I put my name down early. I guess I'm just super organized like that." The table cooed with admiration. "That is so impressive," Mrs. Montgomery gushed. "It's rare to find a young woman with such foresight. You are going to be a wonderful asset to Matthew." The room seemed to tilt. I looked at Destiny, really looked at her. She wasn't just taking the venue, she was taking the credit. She was stealing my competence, the very thing she usually mocked me for, and wearing it like a costume to impress her new in-laws. She was building a marriage on a foundation of fraud, and she was using my hard work as the bricks. I realized then that handing over the venue wouldn't be a gift, it would be a lie. If I signed that transfer, I wouldn't just be a sister helping out. I would be an accomplice. I would be trapping Matthew in a life with a woman who lied about who she was before the ring was even sized. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be part of the con. But I also couldn't say no. If I just refused, Mom would harass me until I broke. She would guilt me, scream at me, maybe even try to forge my signature. There was only one way out. I had to remove the option entirely. I excused myself from the table before dessert was served. "Just need to powder my nose," I said, offering a tight smile to Mrs. Montgomery. I walked to the restroom, locked the door, and leaned against the sink. The reflection in the mirror stared back at me, pale, composed, furious. I could hear the murmur of the restaurant outside, the clinking of silverware, the laughter of people who weren't being blackmailed by their own mothers. My mind raced through the options. If I went back out there and told the truth, Mom would make a scene. She'd cry. She'd say I was jealous. She'd ruin the night, and I would be the villain. If I signed the transfer, I lost everything. My money, my dream, my self-respect. And then there was Destiny, the organized bride, the woman who had built an entire persona on my labor. She needed this venue not because she loved it, but because she needed to prove she was worthy of the Montgomery name. Her self-worth was a house of cards, and she was using my $50,000 as the glue. I realized then that she didn't just want the venue. She needed the lie. If the contract disappeared, the lie would collapse. And if the lie collapsed, Matthew would see the real Destiny. Not the organized, perfect planner, but the chaotic, entitled girl who needed her big sister to fix everything. I wasn't protecting her by giving in. I was enabling a fraud. I took a deep breath. I smoothed my dress, and then I walked out of the restroom. But I didn't go back to the table. I bypassed the dining room entirely and walked straight out the front door of the restaurant into the humid Charleston night. I walked to my car, got in, and locked the doors. And then I made the call. The one from earlier today. The one that burned the bridge. "Sterling Glasshouse Events, this is Sarah speaking." "Hi, Sarah," I said. "This is Alyssa Morgan. I'm calling about the reservation for June 15th. "Oh, hello, Alyssa. Are we finalizing the catering deposit today?" "No," I said. "I'm calling to cancel the booking. Entirely." "Alyssa, are you sure? We're 90 days out. Per the contract, your $50,000 deposit is non-refundable." "I understand. Please process the cancellation immediately. I want the date released back to the wait list by the end of business today." "Okay. I'll send the termination paperwork to your email." "Once you sign, the date is gone, Alyssa. It will be snapped up in minutes." "That's fine. Send it." I signed the document on my phone screen in the parking lot of the Charleston Grill. I watched the progress bar load. Sent. It was done. The asset was nuked. I had just lost $50,000. But as I started the car and drove away, leaving my family inside to toast a wedding that no longer had a location, I didn't feel poorer. I felt lighter. I drove home, turned off my phone, and for the first time in years, I slept without setting an alarm. 48 hours later, I was in my office reviewing blueprints for a new city park when my phone started buzzing. Not a single notification, but a constant frantic vibration that rattled against the desk. Mom. Destiny. Mom again. Mom. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was happening. Right now, Destiny was walking into the Sterling Glasshouse. She was probably wearing white, holding a binder full of Pinterest photos, ready to taste the vanilla bean cake and discuss lighting options. And right now, the venue manager was meeting her at the door with a polite but firm smile and a very short sentence. "I'm sorry, Miss Morgan, but that contract was terminated by the owner 2 days ago." I could picture the scene perfectly. Destiny's confusion turning to panic, the frantic insistence that there must be a mistake, the realization that she couldn't authorize anything because her name was never on the contract. And then the final crushing blow. The date was released back to the public waitlist immediately. It was booked by another couple yesterday morning. The venue was gone. Irretrievable. My phone screen lit up with a new text from Mom. "What did you do? Answer me." I picked up the phone. I didn't call back. I didn't explain about the blackmail, or the disrespect, or the years of being treated like an employee in my own family. I opened the group chat, the one named Wedding Prep, that I had never been allowed to speak in, only listen, and I typed one message. "I decided I didn't want the venue anymore. Since you said I was selfish for holding it, I released it. Good luck finding another spot." I hit send. Then I blocked them. All of them. Mom, Destiny, even Dad, who had watched it all happen from the sidelines without saying a word. The fallout was nuclear. I heard about it later through the grapevine. Destiny had to go back to the Montgomerys and explain that she had lost the venue. She tried to spin it, tried to blame the venue, tried to blame me. But Mrs. Montgomery is a shark. She smelled blood. She asked for the paperwork. She asked why Destiny hadn't secured the contract herself if she was so organized. The lie unraveled. The competence Destiny had claimed, my competence evaporated. Mrs. Montgomery pulled the $300,000 budget, citing concerns about financial management and honesty. Destiny didn't just lose a party. She lost her standing. The wedding was still on, but the tone had shifted. It wasn't a coronation anymore. It was damage control. It is June 15th, the date I had circled on my calendar for 2 years. The date that was supposed to be the culmination of my secret dream at the Sterling Glass House. But I am not in Charleston. I am sitting on a terrace in Tuscany, watching the sun dip behind a row of cypress trees. The air smells like rosemary and wood smoke. Across the table, Mark is pouring a glass of local wine. We got married this morning in a tiny village hall with 2 witnesses we met at the bakery. Our entire wedding cost $5,000. That includes the flights, the villa, the dress I bought off the rack, and the gelato we ate immediately after saying I do. It was quiet. It was intimate. It was ours. Back home, I know exactly what today looked like. I heard through the grapevine that Destiny and Matthew got married in a hotel ballroom near the airport. It was a small affair. The Montgomerys pulled the funding for the lavish celebration after the misunderstanding with the venue came to light. The flowers were standard roses, not the rare orchids Destiny wanted. The guest list was cut in half to save face. And the tension in the room was reportedly thick enough to choke on. They are married, but the foundation is already cracked. Destiny is trying to maintain the image of the perfect wife, but her in-laws now watch her with suspicion. She got the ring, but she lost the respect. As for me, people still ask if I regret it. They ask if it hurts to think about that $50,000 vanishing into thin air. That is a lot of money. It is a down payment. It is a retirement fund. It is a year of security. But as I sit here watching my husband laugh as he tries to pronounce the name of the cheese we're eating, I realize something. I didn't lose $50,000. I spent it. I bought my freedom. I bought my way out of a lifetime of being the resource, the fixer, the doormat. I paid $50,000 to sever the cord that kept me tethered to a family that only valued me for what they could take. I paid for the right to say no and have it stick. I paid for the silence that fills my life now, a silence that isn't lonely but peaceful. Some investments don't pay dividends in cash. They pay in dignity. They pay in self-respect. And looking at the life I have now, a life that is small and quiet and entirely my own, I know it was the best money I ever spent. Sometimes the price of freedom is high, but the cost of staying is higher. If you've ever had to buy your own peace, share this story. You aren't alone.